Awesome. What is up, folks? Appreciate you hanging out with us here this morning. Got just a few folks. I imagine a few will kind of trickle in as we go, but um, hoping to have kind of a intentionally smaller crew this morning. We've been sort of talking to mostly the folks like in our power users Slack, on the community forums, folks that we know are really excited about Retool, use Retool every day to hang out and chat with us here this morning. So maybe we'll kick things off with a quick introduction of the folks on the line from the Retool side. Number one, my name is Kevin Winnery. I'm the head of developer experience here at Retool, and I'm just really glad that folks have decided to spend a little bit of time with us this morning. Really, this is about us learning about what you would like to get out of an event like this, of learning, sort of connecting with other people that use Retool, and like what kind of content that you might like to see in these events going forward. Today, we do have some special treats to share with you. We have Jamie from our product team who's going to talk with us about a exciting new product. And we also have a familiar face, Alina, who is engaged with the community just about every day. But I'll maybe actually pass over to Alina to say hi and introduce herself as well.
Hi, everybody. Yes, my name is Alina. I am back after a 4-month hiatus. I shipped my baby. So she's outside with my husband.
And it's a big ship.
So I'm super stoked to be back here in our lovely community. You'll see me in the forums, in our Slack, and now on Twitter. So yeah, super stoked to be with you all today.
Awesome. Thank you much. And Jamie, maybe a real quick intro.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me. This is it's an honor to be in the first of many. I'm really excited for this new format, and it's good to see so many familiar faces, particularly familiar faces of folks that really helped us build the product that I'm about to show you. So that Kevin will show you, and we'll chat a bit more about. But I'm Jamie. For those who don't know me, I'm a product lead here at Retool, and I work on all of our new products. So one of the first ones that we shipped was our mobile native product for field workforce use cases, particularly sort of iOS, Android native mobile first apps. And then more recently working on the workflows launch that'll be happening next week, where we're really hoping to bring automation capabilities to Retool and make it easy for folks to build stuff like ETL, cron jobs, notifications, alerting type use cases. So excited to chat more about that.
Very cool. Awesome. But yeah, we are probably the least exciting people on the line today. And one of the big parts of creating a meetup group, which we hope will we'll continue to kind of iterate on and figure out what is most useful in this format. But one of the most useful things is connecting everyone in the community to each other, like in a format like this, so you can hear from other people in the community about what they're building, what they're up to. That sort of thing. So what I was hoping to do, actually, for those of you who are able, I would love it if you would, in the chat, sort of raise your hand if you are able to turn on a camera and say hi. And if you are, I'd actually like to kind of bring you up into the group kind of one-on-one and like have you introduce yourself, like maybe, and I will interview you a tiny bit and just kind of ask you like what you're doing with Retool, what you do day to day in the day job, and kind of what you would love to see most out of a Retool meetup that is recurring. So if you are willing to fire up your camera, let me know. If you, somebody on my phone, somebody's on the phone, that's great too. So maybe we could actually start with James. If you are down, I can actually go ahead and invite you to participate, and we'll see if we can start there. And so after I invite you, there we go.
There we go.
Another square is appearing. James, how's it going?
All right, yourself.
Awesome. Where are you joining us from?
I'm based out of the Chicagoland area.
Okay, fantastic. I happen to be in SF today, but I'm out of Minneapolis most of the time. So
okay, gotcha. So
quick stone's throw.
Cold weather's coming.
It is. Winter is coming.
We're almost 70 degrees today, so we're super lucky for the area. So
Yeah, it's true. It's pretty warm up north too. But well, awesome. Well, what do you do day to day? Like, what's your day to day look like?
So I'm a technical projects director for a large automotive group. So a big part of what I do is try and find ways to make the company more efficient and our processes more effective, while eliminating extra steps and costs along the way. And Retool is one of the solutions that we've put into place to start doing some of that stuff and managing some of the workflows and processes that we have. We recently last year launched a mobile app for our customers, and we use Retool actually as the back-end interface for how we see all that information and interact with those customer devices, so to speak, and their accounts. But we've created a big data mart of from all of our third-party solutions, and we house that in the cloud, and then we use that with Retool to just regurgitate data via APIs and build new solutions in Retool.
Sweet, that sounds awesome.
One of the biggest things I'd love to see with Retool is a way to package a Retool application so we could repurpose it with a potential client or sell it. Say, hey, we spent all this time and effort building something. I would love to sell this. I see a little bit of that going that way with the Retool database starting to come into play. But even hosted app as a service, create a multi-tenant environment to be able to take an app and put it in a multi-tenant environment and sell it and manage it for a customer. So it's truly more of a software as a service, which I'm sure you guys are doing with our accounts. So.
Yeah, for sure. Like when you say that's a cool idea. When you say sell it to other folks that are using Retool, would you imagine, packaging it up and having a thing that you would share with other Retool customers, or a thing that you would sell externally?
App Store. Think App Store. Here's an app that we've created that works for your environment. For Salesforce does it. Yeah, Apple does it. Android does. All these different applications are available for those platforms, and some are free, some are available for for purchase. So just being able to license something and say, here you go, here's a solution that's on your marketplace, or a way to actually provide that, export it and import it into another platform, which you can kind of do right now with exporting stuff, but it's not necessarily the smoothest if you want to try. You've got a big application or multiple applications that tie into a single application interface. So that's another good point, is multi-page applications, which looks like it's coming too. If you read the writing on the wall, of sidebars and stuff like that. So Jamie's laughing. He knows it's coming.
Dan, our whole product roadmap at this point. You got a crystal ball there. But yeah, I think those are definitely things that we're very excited about. And we're very, very much starting to inch towards that. I think you probably share with this group that we're starting to work on external Retool for embedding use cases. So if you have a partner, a vendor management portal, or even a dashboard for customers, we're going to make it very easy to authenticate that and share it externally. Yeah, it's a baby step towards, how do you start thinking about building your products in Retool? How do you start thinking about the App Store, which is, definitely on the horizon. So yeah, something we're definitely excited to partner with. And I think multi-page will be coming sooner than that for sure, which is great. But yes, the sidebar, the nav bar, all these things are incremental steps to really tee us up to do some of those big things.
Any native integration for single sign-on into the web version? Is that common? I know it works for on-prem. You guys have it with the on-prem for Okta and some of the other providers, but with the cloud-based, you guys don't technically have that right now. There are ways to get around it, but not pretty.
Yeah, we do not right now.
Okay.
Sorry, back to you, Kevin.
No, that's all right. I was just going to say, like, yeah, it's I think it's definitely not the first time we've heard that particular type of feedback on like being able to authenticate external apps. So especially like with that app marketplace that you're talking about too, like that's something people talk about all the time in Retool is like what's going to be our best like strategy to get to a place where people can share apps in that way. I don't think we're terribly super close at this point, but I wouldn't be surprised to see like some speedy movement in that direction, like in the year to come.
Once you guys go public
Sweet.
and get your public funding.
maybe so. Yeah. When are we IPOing, Jamie? Like, can you share that date yet, or is that not public? Okay, probably not public.
Honestly, I'd look at James. He's figured out our product roadmap, so I'm surprised to know the IPO date.
Maybe we should ask you.
The writing's on the wall.
Oh man,
appreciate that.
Sweet. Well, cool. And then like maybe the last one I'd put you on the spot with a little bit, James, is like, well, what would you like to see like out of a meetup? Like where this like concept is kind of experimental. We're kind of just trying to create a forum for folks that are using Retool a lot to connect with one another. Like what could make this useful for you?
I think I always love seeing latest, greatest features. I mean, that's stuff that gets you excited, that keeps you engaged, that keeps you wanting to come back for more. So demos on those new products or cool solutions and how they're being used, or new ways a solution could be used for stuff like that. Like me say, if you're coming out with an app store, sneak peek at what we're thinking about, for our roadmap, right? Or even a forum to say, hey, what do you think about these features? Is it even worth us developing them? Versus what do you guys want? Because features, I mean, we do the same thing here. We develop internal features that we use and push out amongst our employees before we ever even really fully develop them to determine whether it's going to be something that our customers would want, because a lot of our employees are customers. So, but yeah, that's something like that to keep me engaged, right? Keep me excited about the product, keep me coming back for more and looking for more. But also being able to maybe ask some of the harder questions, say, hey, do more of a technical forum versus a marketing forum.
Yeah, totally. That's great feedback. And is part of like, what I assume maybe folks would like to see here is just like a way to get a sneak peek on what we're working on, some amount of visibility into like new stuff. With like roadmap stuff too, that's definitely an area where we're going to invest. Like I know, Alina, we've had like the like feature request part of the discourse forum for a while. I think we probably need to get a little better at like operationalizing that and like making sure that we, there's definitely stuff that's gleaned from there, but like closing the loop and saying like, we saw this, we're working on it, and now like here's how like it's manifesting in the roadmap. Well, awesome. Well, James, I appreciate you being willing to break the ice and jump on camera first, and hopefully we'll see more of you in the.
I look 10 pounds lighter off camera, by the way.
Yeah, me too. Like at least I think camera adds 40 pounds.
Yeah.
That's what I heard.
All right, cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So here, let me see who else in the chat might be willing to light a camera up and say hi to us and kind of do a similar intro. And by the way, if you're not comfortable lighting the camera up, that's also totally fine. Feel free to like let us know in the chat too, like who you are, what you've been up to, how you use Retool, and especially like what you would like to get out of like Retool meetup that we would do like on a recurring basis, because that's definitely what we want to hear is your input there. Stefan said he'd be willing to light up the camera in a few minutes. Scott is about to drop some knowledge. Yes, I'm sure it's so. Jimmy, have you and Scott chatted before? Oh, you're muted right now, though, I think.
Sorry. Yes, I think a few times. That's right, okay. Scott.
Let's get Scott on the program here. I'm going to invite you to participate. going to put you on the spot a little bit, so you can introduce yourself and say hi to the other folks as well. So we'll temporarily say goodbye to James as we bring Scott on. Scott, how are you doing?
Good. How are you? How are you? I've met you before, Kevin.
We did chat a little bit ago. What is new though is I think the beard. The beard is really coming in nicely.
Yeah,
if you don't mind my saying so.
It's a winter version. It's a minor release.
Yeah, that's the minor release. Is it like a beta test? Like, are you going to see if like?
No, I just do it every winter. Just every winter.
Okay, so this is a seasonal.
Yeah, completely, 100%. So,
Awesome.
hi, Alina. Nice to meet you finally. Jamie, we've met before. James, I can't see you any longer, but it was nice to hear from you. Not sure who else is on. So
got a few folks skulking around. But yeah. Go ahead, introduce yourself and kind of talk maybe a little bit about how you use Retool, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. Longtime developer, product manager, pretty much in the software space for the last 20 years. And sort of got into Retool, as the three of you know, from working with a company as a consultant, looking for a solution for their internal customer support team. So we got on your developer network, which was definitely a lot of people, but we couldn't find the right fit. So I just jumped into it because after reviewing it with the head of technology at the company I was with, it seemed rather intuitive. We had tested other platforms and so forth. I know you guys have a few competitors out there, but I felt really comfortable with it so much so that I just decided to build the application myself. So what I've found is that, and that was the other company I'm working with, another company now, building several applications. And I can tell you, for me, now it's very natural. I mean, I just was on another call testing some of your new, your MVP of the inspection panel. So, and I found that after even 20 minutes, it was very intuitive, make some minor changes and so forth. But, like right now, I'm just building internal applications to help these particular companies just improve their overall internal process in terms of moving data around and so forth. So finding it still a whole lot of fun, working in the platform every single day. So I think there are some things I'd love to see come out. Like I think as you know, I think there's a lot of feature requests with respect to the actual, the IDE, if you will, to break that apart, and like sort of have your sort of development screen, on this panel and your inspector panel on this screen and so forth. So I know there's a lot of that happens in the forum, but as you know, I'm very active there as well. So yeah, that's about it. I don't know, any other sort of questions, thoughts?
Yeah, honestly, the big question I'll have for everybody is what would be useful in a recurring Retool meetup? What would you like to see?
Well, I think to James's point, certainly some technical stuff. If people have the capability to demonstrate something that they've built out that they think that other teams or companies could use, I think it's, in my opinion, it's very open forum. People are very friendly. They want to help other people solve their issues, their problems, or obstacles, and so forth. So I think that would be super helpful. Almost if you think doing a demo, it's sort of like in a sprint cycle. You run through some stuff. It may not be perfect, but you just, hey, I'm trying to do this thing, or I have this brand new idea, and this is what I'm thinking of doing. And so somebody might be able to chime in and say, oh, well, I've done something similar, but I would do it this way, or I never thought of doing that. So I think the idea of sharing what you're working on, if you're able to, is, I think, definitely an important aspect of a meetup, right? Because if you think about all other meetups that you've gone to, whatever they may be, especially technical ones, it tends to get technical, and it tends to, people do want to show and tell. And I know you have that in the community. But I think if you're in person and you're doing it and you're able to discuss it, I think people who are proud of their work. So sometimes people do want to show that. And I think, that's important too. And, And there's no harm in criticism either. There's no harm in that. So it only makes you a better developer, a better manager, what have you. So that's, I'd like to see that. I think that would be super important.
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. I think like especially just the showing off of what people have built. Like I think like another thing I've really enjoyed in meetups, and I'd love to hear from like Alina and Jamie here too, is like I sometimes like we all kind of act in our own little silos, and like we think we have found like what is locally the best solution, but like feedback is really what we need about like, well, I built the query this way, or I wrote this chunk of code this way, and like kind of what do people think about that? So yeah, I think that would be super useful.
And also I think too, well, I don't find it often in the forums, and as you know, Kevin, and probably in the forums in general, but I mean, like I'm on the developer network and I'm consulting, and I've been doing that and primarily being solely development. But I think it also helps if like other people who either are using Retool or managing people who are using Retool, or even looking for people like, I know you guys come out with the Mallet, right? The newsletter. But and sometimes there are jobs that are the other companies that are looking for Retool developers and so forth. And I think that would be helpful too. Just to talk about if, reach out to other people and see if like I know there's the developer network, but that doesn't seem to be very active, I guess, if you will.
Kevin and I were just talking about this, weren't we, a few days ago? This very issue.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like because basically what happens, like to pull back the curtain, it's not very magic what happens with the developer network. I think you fill out the form, you end up like in an Airtable, and then like Retool actually gets like a non-trivial amount of like inbound requests for like, hey, I need help with such and such a thing. And then like somebody goes into that, listing of Retool developers and like kind of looks for potential fits. So obviously it's not a very like sophisticated and or useful process. So like Alina and I talked about that yesterday, actually, about how we can make that more useful for sure.
Yeah, I think, when I'm on the community or in the forum rather, what I find is that there's definitely most of the people who post solutions or ideas are the people who are actually in the network. For maybe not most, maybe 50%, but so I guess what I'm trying to say is that I wonder if there's a way within the meetup that we can discuss like what other companies are starting to use Retool. I guess I don't know if you're allowed to do that, but it also would help the developer network to say, oh, unless you guys are doing this internally, I don't know, but maybe this other company might need a person like me who has experience in using the platform. And I don't know if you're doing that internally. It's like, however, whatever.
We do from time to time, but like that's also been a good like feature of meetups that I've been to as well. It's like,
networking, essentially networking.
Yeah, the networking and like looking for folks to hire or folks that are looking for work. I ran the JavaScript meetup in Minneapolis for about 5-6 years, and that was definitely one of the big draws of that one. So. Sweet. Well, Scott, thank you very much. I'm gonna see if we can give anybody else a chance who wants to jump on a little bit. So I know Stefan, you had potentially wanted to raise your hand and jump on. I'd love to hear from you. Anybody else in the chat too, who would be willing to light up a camera and just tell us a little bit about how they use Retool. That would be awesome. But I'll go on a limb and see if I can. Nada is typing too, hopefully to potentially be willing to turn out. But I'll see if I can invite Stefan to participate, who is ready to join us. But if anyone else is ready too, definitely just like pop it in the chat, and we will get you going here. So come on in, and Stefan, how are you doing? So clearly, you and Jamie are already best friends. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
I've had the pleasure a couple times.
100%.
Yeah, not daily, but I've been poking him when they're launching the workflow. So I'm really excited seeing that stuff. So yeah,
Nice. Like, are you going to be
my
at
name
his
is
wedding
Stefan.
yet? Like, is this like
No,
how
no,
deep,
no,
how
no, no,
long
no.
was it? Maybe potentially. Okay,
Ah,
like in the
I
groom's
don't know.
party
When did we
somewhere, maybe.
meet, Jamie? When did we meet?
I
I
think
think
it's
about
over a year, maybe a year and a half ago now. But we have at
it
Retool,
has to be.
we owe Stefan a lot. I mean, he sat through some very early versions of both the mobile product and the workflows product. I think Stefan actually built probably one of my favorite workflow use cases, the one that you built with the Jira tickets and your at
Oh
Best
yeah,
Western.
that one is awesome.
Yeah, so
That
great.
one's awesome. And now you gave away a little bit sort of where I was heading from. So where hailing from. So I'm a developer based off in Stockholm, in Sweden. So pretty far north.
Awesome.
So sorry, I was getting home, so it's late here in Europe. And I've been using Retool first for my previous employer, which was Best Western here in Scandinavia, for about 3 years, trying to solve the unsolvable problem of building tech with a one-man show. So I have a physics background and built applications before, all the way from like writing the back end, writing the front end, writing all of that stuff on my own. Then I left academia and I was like, yeah, you need to deliver value. You need to deliver quickly. Nobody has the patience of looking at stuff and seeing unfinished stuff. And that's how I started with Retool. I was featured in one of the early lightning rounds, where it was about like bring Excel tools to the web, and these tools are still in use. So apparently the stuff I built was not completely crap, so that's great. And I left the company now back before the summer, and since then I've been at least half-time developer for Retool, basically on a professional level, so with various freelance opportunities. And here, big shout out to Alex. I forgot the last name, but he's been redressing this sort of developer. What did you guys call it? There was a previous name, but now it's called professional services, and it clearly shows that there's someone taking care of these things. And it's so I think it was Scott mentioning this before. This is definitely a great place for getting gigs out of that, right? So of various kinds. Yeah. So. And having said that, half about my time is spent on Retool stuff, so it's becoming a little bit broader what I've been doing, right? So like recently, I just built my first mobile app, though the client didn't want to invest into like mobile. I was trying to get them to do that. So right now they're stuck with a RESTful version, but I'm still trying to get them onto the mobile one. So yeah. I don't remember what your other questions were. So go ahead, Kevin. You ask questions.
I have. I've been like giving people the third degree here, but the big one is just like if we're trying to kind of spin up a recurring thing where we connect Retool developers together. What would be useful for you? Like, what would you like to see like in a recurring meetup?
So the fact that I have only about half my time to be able to spend on Retool is sometimes really a hindrance, because it turns out like, the client comes in and says, yeah, this is a requirement. Then the client may not immediately see the power of Retool, right? And what else can be done. But you get him hooked. And then I was like, yeah, okay, now all of a sudden he wants to build me an integration into an ERP system. And I was like, this is not something I can do on the side, right? So what I would love to be able to do is like find like-minded people that you can spin up corporations, right? Where you can say, okay, yeah, you have someone who knows the platform, who's comfortable with it. Because if you're bringing on someone with a non-Retool background, there's always the learning curve, right? And then it's also like you don't know where to get help, and you don't want to babysit, right? You want to have someone to share this. So that would be something for sure that I'd be interested in. Continue on the lightning round stuff, but really more sort of get into the nitty gritty. So I mean, I like the lightning round because I got one of my clients afterwards, which was one of the speakers there. They wanted to have then someone to shepherd their apps, and that was great while it lasted. But yeah, so I would say that for sure. And then I think that was mentioned before, this multi-tenant stuff, and also sort of this thinking, how do you package? Because Retool is a platform, right? And it's a fantastic platform, but some clients, they don't really care so much about these things. They are really interested in like the application that you build and nothing beyond that. And I feel like there's some sort of, there may even be like a hidden revenue stream which is being missed by saying, okay, you know, we're developers, we may have like another skew on the whole licensing thing where we say, okay, this application can be used by XYZ users. And I think mobile apps is clearly going in that direction. But right now I'm thinking like, yeah, you know, I'm going to spin up yet another Retool setup and going to connect that to my database. And yeah, but this becomes sort of recurring thing, and the admin becomes a lot of overhead, right? Exactly, James. Partner program, precisely, or something like that, right?
Yeah, 100%. We actually very recently hired someone to like start building out that like that particular type of program, like a more formal partner program. Like we have, I don't know if you've met Alex M from our side yet, but who has been kind of building out professional services and like referring folks out in the developer
I
network.
was giving a shout out to Alex earlier.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you did explicitly say that. My bad. But yeah, I think there's definitely way more to do on that side of things to help like create that those marketplace dynamics for people, like finding collaborators. So,
I mean,
awesome.
It could be as simple as having some sort of way where we developers that do this for a living and not just for one client have some easier way of maintaining these different instances, right? So I have my own with my company. I have my own Retool account where I have all the bells and whistles enabled, and I can build all the stuff out there, and then I can ship it off to some other account. But it would be way cooler if there's some sort of like almost like a partnership program, right? Where we say, okay, well, you know what, there's another licensing model where we say, okay, this is the fee that we pay on top because we're this type of power users, but we can dispatch set functionality to end users or stuff like that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Yeah, we'll definitely like this group is a great like because it will be most of the folks that are pretty highly engaged with Retool. Like this will be a great place to like showcase those ideas as we come up with those programs as they roll out. So, but this is definitely useful feedback, and we are recording it and taking some notes. So like this is a big part of like what we were hoping to learn from this session. Is kind of what folks are looking for. So thanks for being willing to
and
do
of
that.
course the roadmap. The roadmap is always appreciated. Glad to have you here, Jamie.
Yeah.
We can definitely do that anytime.
Yeah, that is definitely a thing we can do. Awesome. All right. Well, I think we will maybe say goodbye to Stefan for now. Thank you very, very much again for joining us. Much appreciated. And I think what we will do at this point is just to stay on target a little bit. We definitely would love to hear from more folks in the chat, especially on like what would you like to see from us, like in a meetup setting, as we go forward with this, because we definitely want to like continue to iterate, kind of widen the audience, and like invite more people in as well. But like wanted to kind of start especially with our most highly engaged users. So I really appreciate folks sharing those perspectives, and you can continue to share those in the chat. But one of the exciting things we wanted to do today is just really quickly introduce one of the really cool products that we've been working with. It sounds like a few people on the line have already seen it, but for those who haven't, we very soon will be launching a new product at Retool called Workflows. And workflows are a way for you to create sort of back-end tasks like ETL jobs, cron jobs, like the kinds of things that oftentimes you need to do like in an internal tool development scenario, but aren't necessarily part of like those human in the loop, like front end applications that you build in Retool. So we've been hard at work at this. Many of you have tried it already, but for those of you who haven't, I will just kind of like poke around real quick and show you a few things in the tool itself. But maybe as I do that, like Jamie, I would ask you to kind of maybe say a few words about like how did we get to this point? Like how did we learn that this was a thing developers needed, and like kind of what were the things that were going through our minds as we were trying to like what were we trying to do differently? Like what were our goals kind of coming in here?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think with workflows, this has certainly been something that all of you and the folks in the community have wanted for a long time, and something that we've really wanted to invest in, but also just for our own business. I mean, we have built countless workflows internally that run everything from our incident management process through to portions of our billing script, through to how we manage sort of upgrades. And now our business is really running on workflows, and we want to open that up to some other folks as well. The main reason that we built this, certainly there are lots of automation tools out there in the world. You've got a lot of no-code type tools on one end, your Zapiers, those types of products, and on the total opposite end, you've got your AWS Lambdas, writing your own cron jobs, etc. But for us, like, there was really like kind of a missing piece in between. Either you are spinning up all of this code from scratch, having to like spin up some infra, write a bunch of boilerplate, connect to driver libraries, figure out how to authenticate to your resources, and then write something in a usual cron job or something in AWS Lambda. Or on the other end, you're like using Zapier or one of these types of no-code tools, and usually that works for like 80%, and then you kind of get stuck, and you can't really do like the most mission critical things. Connecting a couple apps, totally, but like building our incident management process, it wasn't going to happen, particularly with all the stuff you need to connect to in your internal services, et cetera. So workflows aims to kind of bridge that gap and make it really easy for developers in particular to use code, what code is good for. Like, code has always been good for automating processes. So we want to bring that first and foremost front and center in workflows, but also make it really easy to sort of build these processes really quickly with out-of-the-box logic apps, with connectors, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, maybe Kevin, you can show them what we built.
Yeah, for sure. So we actually had an event a couple of weeks ago that I bet a few folks hung out for, where we kind of gave a little bit of a preview of the event. And this is actually the application that we built. And what I'll do is actually just real quick drop into the chat a link to a document where, like, if you wanted to build this out yourself, this would contain like kind of a video of like how we went through and created that process. So you can check that out and kind of go through this. But I wanted to just like, because I think a lot of folks on the line have actually seen workflows. I won't like kind of exhaustively go through it, because I think like asking Jamie questions about the product is probably more useful to most of the folks here today. But just to kind of show you how this works, in a workflow, you kind of start off with a start trigger, which today can be either sort of initiated by a webhook or executed on a schedule. So you can use kind of this nice like GUI to determine when you want this workflow to execute. Or you can use cron syntax if you're old school, and that is a way in which you feel comfortable specifying a schedule for your recurring work. And also, like the webhook here just gives you a URL that you can hit to kick off this workflow, which is useful if you need to initiate a workflow from an external system of some kind, like maybe you have PagerDuty set up, or you have some other kind of system that needs to push events to Retool so you can kick off the workflow. This is the way you do that. And you can also specify parameters that get pushed into the workflow as well, and you can parse those out from like a JSON body that you send to kick off the workflow. And before too long, I'm going to put you on the spot here, Jamie. I think eventually you're going to be able to actually return stuff from the webhook too. Like, is that a thing that we're thinking about?
Totally. I mean, when we're thinking about kind of where workflows is going, there's a lot of stuff we want to do, including, I know a number of you guys have asked for Python in the past. That's coming. But even more so, the big thing we're going to be focusing on in Q1 is integration. So how do we take, all the pieces of this platform together to build sort of more full stack type applications? And the first example of that is really, how do you call a workflow from a Retool app? And we already have lots of people that are just like grabbing that webhook, tossing it into the REST API and just triggering something. But right now, everything's asynchronous. And so we're working on it right now is making this synchronous, so you can actually return some data back, basically build your own API that you can use anywhere inside of Retool or elsewhere.
Yeah, that is going to be pretty clutch. Like the thing I'm really excited, the thing I'm most excited about, I think there is like Retool has a great way to build these front ends, but like once you can start building out your own custom back ends using workflow, I'm going to be pretty stoked on that as well. And then as you go about like building out a workflow, you start with this start trigger, and then if you mouse over the start trigger, you'll see this little dot emerge. And I'm going to kind of break this real quick, but you can basically drag out from there like new steps in a workflow. So you can have like a query, which is for those the folks on the line here almost certainly have used some Retool before. So this is just going to be any query that you can do within Retool to access like your configured data sources, or hit REST APIs and do things like that. And then there are a couple, high level, blocks that you can use as well. So you can do like a loop, which, I actually have an example of in a little bit. You can do a branch for like conditional logic, or you can like take the results of a query or some other operation, and you can filter them based on some criteria. So you can like work with a smaller subset of data. So just like a few niceties. I'm actually kind of curious, Jamie, like how did we kind of settle on these primitives? Did these just kind of emerge, organically, or kind of how do we prioritize those?
Yeah, your question. Steve and I were just having this conversation in the chat where when you first started with workflows, the very first version was actually a linear editor. So you could like write basically like linear queries and chain them together. And people were writing like tons and tons and tons of JavaScript just to be able to do like a simple like loop, maybe a filter, and then be able to query some resources. Like we had people writing 150 lines of JavaScript. And it's like, well, that's like kind of what you do when you're like spinning up a Lambda. So we wanted to make sure that we were like really like making it 10 times faster to build these workflows in the way that, Retool hopefully does for UIs. And so when we moved to this sort of GUI mode, the loop block was one of the first ones that we built because we just saw people like looping through data, very often. And we always wanted to give people the ability to sort of drill down into code, but sort of provide that GUI for the logic on top. And then the next one was the filtering and the branching, as you saw, sort of people wanted to sort of manage more control flow in terms of different sort of areas you might want to branch into. And then we've got some other ones we're thinking about, like it was conversation around like mapping, around zip, like how do you join two data sources together, pagination, batching, like those types of use cases are all things that we're thinking about, and hopefully things that'll make it easier not only to write workflows but also eventually to write queries for your main apps as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and maybe the last thing I'll point out here too, because this to me I think is kind of one of the more interesting parts of this approach as like an interface versus other stuff that's out there, is like kind of the incremental way in which you can execute your flow. So like most of us on the call here are developers. We have written code, and like oftentimes like how you'll do that is you'll write a little bit of code, then you'll run it and you'll log like the results out to the console. Then you'll write a little more code and then you'll log those results, or you'll like maybe have a test suite that you'll run incrementally. But you usually build out like these workflows like incrementally and like kind of test the results at various points of the process. And that's actually like a high level feature of workflows, which is great. So like each of these little blocks has like a little run button up at the top, where you can actually like execute that part of the flow. And it's like it's almost like it's combining that iteration process and like a visual step through debugger, where like you'd kind of look at and inspect the state of your like logic at any point. And then you can kind of see like, all right, this is the data that exists in the flow. This is what's being returned at this step. And in many ways, just kind of instruments a flow that developers go through naturally anyway. And I wonder, Jamie, like, is that kind of part of what you were going for here, is like to emulate that loop that developers go through?
Totally. I mean, I think like when you think about building visual programming tools, like the whole goal is to make the feedback cycle really quick, right? I'm sure you guys sort of experience this with some of your clients as well, where it's like put it in front of them, get a sense of it if they like the UI, switch it around, and you can do that sort of in real time, right? That's kind of the magic of building a UI with Retool. When you think about it on the sort of back end side, I think the data becomes like really, really important. Like I always felt the magic moment for Retool was connect your data source, write a query, and see it live. And that's kind of what workflows is really all about, is like how quickly can you connect to your data source? How quickly can you see the sort of data that's returned, and then being able to sort of mess around with it, map it, et cetera, whatever you wanted to do as an ETL process in JS. That's kind of the core concept that we wanted to get to with workflows. Whereas in the past, when I was trying to build these types of processes, like having to go and find like whatever package I need to like hit Salesforce, trying to figure out how to do the authentication, like you just do so much work before you ever just get to write like the SQL query or hit the API or whatever. This is really nice to be able to get it into this kind of like an interface.
Yeah,
I saw a question also about adding an environment. We are doing that. They're down there now.
They are. Is that a thing that I can do today?
Yeah.
Like if
See
I
where
have access to
click on production.
Where do I see that?
Down in the bottom right.
Oh, right, sure, down in the bottom. Okay, yeah, it's. I was looking at the top because in the app builder, it's in the top, right? The different environments. So, okay, well, there we go. So yeah, you can switch the environments there as well. So awesome, very cool. So yeah, I mean, definitely lots to check out. If you scroll up in chat a little bit, I'll drop the links in here too. But if you want to build out the flow that you're seeing here, you can watch that video, kind of step through the what I built here, which is essentially like a Hacker News alerts use case where we use the Hacker News API to get content and kind of filter based on what we find. So the other thing I wanted to give folks a chance to do, if you haven't already, is to go to this form that I just dropped in the chat here too. And this is where, if you haven't already signed up for access to the developer preview for workflows, you can fill out that form and request that your cloud Retool instance gets access to workflows, so you can play around with that as well. So would love to have you sign up if that is interesting to you. In the last 10 minutes here, just to make sure that we have plenty of time to get to your questions if you have them, if you have any questions that you'd like to throw at Jamie or me or Alina too, about anything about workflows or just anything about what you'd like to see in the meetup, that kind of stuff, definitely pop those in the chat. And it looks like we have a couple from Stefan about like words on licensing model, versus volume, traffic, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you're totally right. We were not, when we first started out with this, we weren't even thinking about the pricing model. And now pretty crazy. We have like millions of workflow runs a week. So we started to see like tons and tons and tons of usage for this. So our big philosophy when we're thinking about sort of the licensing model is, one, we want to be really generous. We want people to get started with workflows to be able to build a lot. I think one of the problems with existing stuff is when you're really thinking about like number of runs or like number of steps, and they're all like really small plans. It's very hard to actually build something mission critical. So what we went with is a process or a metric of data throughput. So basically how much data you read in and write out from your workflow. What we found was that was the most correlated to value, because you could have a workflow that you're running a ton, but actually like wasn't doing very much, it was just like sending a Slack message. Or you could have a workflow that, was really like the mission critical process that was managing all your ETL, but be running it very infrequently. And so that's really what we anchored around. And the pricing will be going live from next week. And the price will basically be 1 gigabyte for free on all plans, and then $50 per month per gigabyte over that. And to give you context, about 93% of our users current users will not be paying anything for workflows. So it's really kind of like targeted sort of more power side as we grow. And yeah, if you have feedback or thoughts on that, definitely let me know. And for all the sort of beta customers that are getting started with workflows now, they won't be paying until the end of the year.
Awesome. That's very cool. You know, I love to see that usage-based pricing. That's cool to see. That's related to if you ship something into prod that's doing work, that's when you start actually paying, which is great. Cool. Are there other questions that folks have for Jamie? Yeah. So plans to monitor this throughput from the cloud instance. Yeah, I suppose we'll probably have to show people in the console how much they're pushing through the system.
Totally. That is actually going to be live as of today's rollout, whenever that happens. I think probably the next hour or so. So there'll be two things. In the index page, you'll be able to see all of kind of like the dashboard that shows you how much usage you've used versus, for that month. But then and how many active workflows you have and all that sort of stuff. And then when you drill down into a workflow, Kevin, actually, if you go on the left-hand side where the logs setup is in the top.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Sure.
Below the outline in the sort of time travel one, there next to like every run history, you'll be able to see how much data was used. And the reason there is we want to like let you tune it, basically. Like if, a workflow is like doing a lot of throughput, you don't actually need it to be doing that. You can just, select star from the columns or select from the columns you need instead of selecting star, like let you really tune like the usage so that you can do that sort of in real time as you're building. So that's some of the tooling we're trying to provide.
Sweet. No, that does make sense. Like, and yeah, I feel like I would like if like the Amazon console, say, like gave me a sense of how much like each of my little bits was like costing me on my bill. So like that, I'm into that UI idea. Looks like maybe Scott's queuing up a question here too. So someone was emailed out. Can you post email when we're pushing out changes before they go out? Yeah, that's kind of an interesting question, right? Like, so Retool does do like continuous delivery with the platform, but it's kind of funny in that like we're sort of impacting like a runtime environment when we do that, right? Because like we're adding new features to the platform. That's kind of a good point from Scott there about like maybe we want to, like, is that something that has come up for you, Jamie? Like, have you seen scuttlebutt around that?
Yeah, I'm curious for your guys' thoughts too. I think that one thing we want to make sure we're doing really well is communicating like what is changing. Like I think we have a lot of plans to up level the change log. We're also doing a lot of stuff to make it easier to discover new products or new features in the product. So like probably software debug tools. We had a bunch of sort of contextual onboarding in the product that hopefully made it easier for folks to understand what we were launching. Because one of the big issues is that, we launch things and then if folks don't see it, it's hard to, they don't have all the sort of improvements that we hopefully shipped with debug tools or with workflows, et cetera. But on the flip side of that, I think that is something that we should potentially consider, particularly when it comes to sort of our on-premise versions. We definitely think about like explaining what's going to happen when you roll out your next version. On the cloud, it's sort of less so, as that's like kind of always on our sort of latest stable build. So yeah, something definitely for us to think about, and definitely in the community, I feel like you have a better sense of sort of what's coming up next. So if you guys will have the loop on that, I'm sure the broader user base definitely feels that too.
Yeah, and I wonder if you'd like plus one this idea, Jamie, which is that like as a company, that's kind of what Retool has to figure out, is that like when we are doing continuous delivery, like backwards, like ironclad backwards compatibility is like what we're signing up for there, such that we can do those updates transparently. Because like it would be a bummer if like, our cloud users had to like make sure that they only stayed on version whatever of the of the current software. Like ideally the promise of the cloud is that, you always get the most recent version.
Totally. We actually just shipped a couple of weeks ago internally a product philosophy on backwards compatibility. And it's kind of like the first time our head of products came out and said, basically, we do not make breaking changes to our product. And a recommended strategy in the case of, we want to make or breaking changes to deprecate and replace. So you'll always be able to use those existing products, but we want to be really thoughtful about, this is a runtime environment. We can't make breaking changes. It means that we're also probably more thoughtful about what we do release. We want to make sure that what we do release is going to be there for the long term, because people's behaviors change, and you build mission critical software that you expect to be around for a long time. So I think it's something we're definitely thinking about. And I think we'll probably also share more of this philosophy externally in the future, but definitely something that's very top of mind for the team.
Awesome. Very cool. Great. Well, then I think what I'm going to do is probably wrap it up here, because I know, folks on our side have a few things they got to jump to at the top of the hour. But if you have more questions that we didn't get to today, hop into the forums into community.retool.com, especially in the discussion section, and let us know if there's other thoughts that you have on the meetup. You can also just let us know directly. A lot of you are in our power user Slack, so you can ping me or Jamie or Alina if you have any ideas, thoughts about what you'd like to see here. I'll also just quickly drop in, I'm kevin.winnery@retool.com. So please feel free to reach out to me if you have any thoughts about what you'd like to see in these meetups going forward. Would love to hear your thoughts there. But would once again just really like to thank everybody for participating in the event today. It's definitely a learning experience for us. We just kind of wanted to put it out there and see what we could do, what people would be interested in, and we'll just kind of continue to iterate from here with a lot of the great feedback that we heard from folks that participated today. So big thanks to Alina, Jamie for hanging out, but more importantly to all of you for hanging out with us here today. And we can't wait to hang out with you again sometime soon in the future. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for the feedback, and thanks, Kevin, for having us.
Yeah, of course. Later, folks.